We are here for our 100th episode.
100th episode.
Yes. So just
seems like it's happened fast.
It did. It really does go by fast. So we're just shy of a full, complete, 2 years worth of information and sharing. And so we're here to talk about a little bit of history, money culture, and banking culture, and the IBC culture rolled into one today. So Lacy had already previously put together some information for us. So I'll let her get going on it.
Yeah. So one of the questions that we get asked or comments that we receive often revolve around how long has this been around? How long have these policies been around? Haven't heard of them before. Why haven't we heard of them? And so since we address this all the time, we thought for the 100th episode, let's do some history. So if you are a visual learner or you're watching us on YouTube, you can head over because I'm going to share a little bit of a presentation that I have done in the past that talks about farm financing in Canada and kind of where it all began. So, back in 1929, we had the Canadian Farm Loan Board of 1929 was formed. This is where farm financing all started. And then it evolved from there. So just to put it in a nutshell, farm financing started back in 1929 because it was a way for the farmers to receive some assistance so that they could plant the crops or purchase the livestock. And then in 1959, the Farm Credit Act became a thing. And so FCA was introduced and established as a crown corporation in Canada. And so the interest rate was 5%, and they had a capital of $8 million. And so there were limitations on what you could access as far as loans. So just like there is today, there's limitations on what you can access. And so I guess it just takes us back to farm financing has been around for years and years and years, but it's evolved in a sense of traditional financing, but it has kept the same kind of principles. You go to the bank, you're allowed a certain amount. Back then, it was you were allowed a set certain amount for each person, but now it's more of a qualification process, right? But there's still an interest rate. There's still an amount that you have to pay back. And so that really hasn't changed at all. What's interesting is when Mary Jo first wrote the book, how she states right in the first few pages of the book, the way that we farm has changed over the years and evolved and improved so much. But the way that we're financing the farm has not changed at all. And that's the real problem that we're seeing.
The biggest piece that everyone should actually really question when they're getting any sort of financing, whether you're on the farm or not, is just what you are putting up for collateral in order to do it. The typical type of lending that happens, usually the terms and conditions don't necessarily match the same conditions of when you are getting paid, whether you're a rancher or a farmer. There's very few instances in the agricultural world where you basically have a monthly income of some kind. And I believe really dairy farmers, or very similar to it, but dairy farmers for sure, they get monthly, but the rest of the industry doesn't. Depending on the circumstances of that year, maybe it's good, but then it only takes 1 or 2 bad years, and then it takes you 3 or 4 good years to make up for the 1 bad year or the 2 bad years. And it has a lot to do with the conditions that you had from your lending institutions, because it can set you way back.
Yeah, I always say farmers and ranchers or any in the ag industry are some of the most resilient people and the best planners, because if you're only getting that lump sum of capital, or income once or twice per year, it takes a lot of strategy. It takes a lot of self-control to manage those funds so that it lasts you the entire year or even more, right? Well, that's one thing that sets farmers and ranchers apart from other people, is not only is there their success directly impacted by so many things out of their control, their success is directly related to how they manage their money, their relationship with money, their mindset toward money, self-control, living within their means or below their means. There's so many factors that go into the success of someone in the ag industry.
I believe too, like as much as the industry in and of itself automatically breeds some long-term thinking, at the same time, simultaneously, it doesn't mean that certain cultures inside of individual homes and individual operations necessarily adopt long-term planning either, right? I think that every single day and every single challenge of like what's going on in the economy or what's going on outside, just even the weather in and of itself can cause any one operator to become more or less in a reactive mode. Because typically sometimes what I find too, Lacy, like, for as many times as we sat across and spoken to many of the ranchers and farmers out there, the actual emotional and mental bandwidth to properly process and think clearly about what is the most strategic move to make for long-term sustainability can be very staticky experience, so to say. Like, it's like there's just so much static. Sometimes it can be super clear for some people because a generation before them, right? Talking a little bit about history, in order to like experience farming and ranching, from my observation, is when someone before them, their uncle, somebody before their generation, a generation before them or a generation before them, started a certain type of mindset or a certain type of culture within their operations to pass it off smoothly from one to the next. It's still amazing me. Like there's tons of operations out there that have no problem now. Like we talk about, hey, we're at 100 episodes. We're talking about what's been going on in the last 100 years. A part of how exciting this is too is a lot does change and can change in 100 years. A lot of the statements that we get, especially when people are just coming to us and they're like, how come we haven't heard about this before? The thing is like, you pointed out something else, Lacy. What did you pick up? You picked up a book from 1996.
Okay, this is a kind of a funny story. A place that we purchased where we run cattle, I found this book that was left behind. And of course, like I'm a reader, I'm a book nerd anyway, but I found this book and it is a special report. The 10 Secrets Revenue Canada Doesn't Want You to Know About. And so it's by David Both. And so I thought, well, heck yeah, I'm going to read that and see what it's all about because one, like it's older, you can tell. So this was released in 1996. This one is one of the first editions that was put out. So there's 10 secrets in here. And I thought for sure life insurance is probably in there. And so secret number 8, and some of this is outdated, but it still gets the point across. Secret number 8 is buy an insurance tax shelter. Yes, the life insurance industry is a tax haven and will likely always enjoy that status because of the special laws created just for it. And so it goes on to say it's like, a couple of pages of why life insurance is a secret that the CRA doesn't want you to know about.
Sorry. Okay, I'm only 50. I think my hearing's pretty good. I'm sorry. I thought you said wife insurance. Did you say
wife insurance? No, I said life insurance.
Okay.
But wife insurance is a good idea too.
Yes.
So it just says like I'm not going to read all of what it says because it's not all accurate anymore, but it's outdated. But it says, what is an insurance tax shelter? Simply put, an insurance tax shelter is a plan issued by a life insurance company that allows you to deposit this is where it's not accurate, any amount of money and shelter all the growth of the investment from income tax. So that's not accurate. You can't deposit any amount of money into a life policy today. Like that's not how
happening.
It works. No. That's not how it works. And you know what? That is a question that we get often too. Well, I want to put can I put this much? Can I just put whatever I want in there? So no, that's not. So, and then just goes on to say, well, like what makes the strategy work, et cetera, et cetera. But I point this out to say, like, this was written in 1996. So it's something that has been talked about for years and years and years. But if we go back, Winnie, and we start digging into more of what Nelson talked about, here in Canada, dividend paying, so participating life insurance policies, were introduced in the 1840s.
1847.
Pop quiz for Winnie. When did the stock market begin in Canada?
Wild guess. 1972.
1852, the stock market begins in Canada. So you're way off.
Guess I don't know nothing of that.
Then the next interesting thing is the income tax was introduced as a temporary measure in Canada. And this was like the war tax in 1917. Okay?
Yeah.
Then in 1948, the war tax evolved into what is now called the Income Tax Act. Okay, so we're saying 100 years before the Income Tax Act that we know today was introduced in Canada, participating whole life policies were introduced.
Yep.
So if that doesn't make you scratch your head and say, what in the world? Like, we're questioning so many other things. Every single thing that pops up in mainstream news, social media, government, politics, we're questioning. And we're not questioning this. These policies were introduced 100 years before the Income Tax Act and years before the stock market was introduced, and we're still not questioning, why are they not telling us about this?
Yeah. And throw else like another bit of timeline. This could be really interesting to actually just create a whole timeline around this and share afterwards. So maybe we can create that. Bank of Canada was created in 1935, so it's less than 100 years old here. And again, like when I was saying, a lot can happen in 100 years. It didn't really take much to really change our financial culture. And right now, I don't think it changed. I know it didn't change for the better for the majority of us. Because Nelson talked about the banking system. Not only is it a place for storage for our capital, but it's also a place where we often go to borrow money from the bank. In effect, though, if you think about how our blood circulates through our body, water, there's a certain body of water. There's one body of water. How does money go from one place to another in the world? And that's through the banking system. Every single person, every single business, every single like financial entity of some kind needs to be plugged in to the banking system.
To the one pool of money.
Right. And there's more lent out than what's actually physically in the bank. But I think honoring the human psychology, sometimes, we're awesome, but sometimes we're not always the brightest. If we haven't heard of you, then you must not be right. You must be a scam.
Yeah. I think we question anything that seems out of the norm. And the more, and we're all products of what we've been taught, where we come from. Our, what's that saying? Don't get too far from your raisin. That's like a southern thing. It's like, don't forget your raisin. So don't forget where you came from.
Right.
And I think for me, moving so far away from where I grew up and where all of my family is from, that has been something that's been important for me to like not forget where I came from, not forget my roots, not forget my East Texas roots. And so when we start to talk about our relationship with money, our mindset, how we handle it, how we finance, my dad was not afraid to do business with the bank. But he had a very good relationship with his banker on a first name basis. Hey, I need a loan for this. This is what I'm doing with it. And the deal was done because the banker knew that my dad was good for it. He was good for my dad, but the banker also, I guess, was good for my dad as well in return, right? They had a great relationship. So I grew up within a household who weren't afraid to do business with the banks.
Mm-hmm.
But as I grew up, I moved out, I moved away. I really had to grow up really fast when I moved so far away. But then I started to develop my own habits and my own, okay, is this how I want to do this? I'm a little bit afraid of signing up for a loan or things like that. So we're all a product of like our raisin. I'll just call it. We're just a product of our raisin. And it's up to us to determine what are we going to question, if we're going to question it at all, and then make that decision to move forward with whatever path we pick. And when it comes to finances, it's like people are questioning it because it's out of the norm, but they're not questioning what is wrong with the norm. And the norm being going to the bank and relying on the bank for everything. It's not even on most people's radar of how they could finance their own life because they don't know it's an option.
And you know what I really love about the infinite banking concept and how it relates to our relationship with money is I really find that there's just something about what we're doing, how different it is from the norm, that it becomes like the pivotal point in which someone actively questions what they understand about money to begin with. Like everything about it. It's not just the fact that they may not trust what infinite banking concept is. Now they don't even trust what's been going on, which I love. I wish it was sometimes simpler because when you're learning anything new, it just takes a few rounds before it really sinks in deeply where it becomes like, aha, I really get what the problem is and why this is a solution. And at the same time, it's sort of like the same thing here. No one really questions like the cell phone, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
I started selling cell phones in 1999, year 2000, when we still had the bag phones and the analog areas where it was back in 1999, it was not in every single household. Pagers were still around, and text messaging was still just becoming a feature. But you know what? There was less questions about what is this technology? How is it going to impact my house, my ears, my eyes, that sort of stuff. No one really talked about that. But you know what? Every human wanted one of these, right? As soon as they could afford this, as soon as they could qualify to get a cell phone in their hands, because what does it instantly mean for the person having one of these?
Oh, I remember when my mom and dad got their first cell phone.
Yeah.
I was probably in junior high. And I have a very vivid memory. I can remember, I remember my first day of kindergarten. It's weird, but
yeah.
And I remember okay, we're going to town for groceries, right? And so, we'll take the cell phone in case we need it. And it's going to cost however many cents per minute to use it, right? And I remember, I don't know, my mom or my sister once saying well, I wonder if we have to turn it on to receive a call.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember us coming to the conclusion no, I don't think it has to be on. I think it just rings to it. If somebody calls, it turns on. That's how Dinosaur, and it had the antenna that pulled up.
Yeah.
And we thought it was really cool when we got to make a phone call on that.
Right. And so the underlying win and the reason why people didn't even question the inner workings of a cell phone is because it means connection. You're instantly connected. You feel connected, right? And it's totally worth it for us. So I'm not complaining, but we do have our work cut out for us because what we do as it relates to the infinite banking concept requires so much work in the terms of explanation because for some reason, and maybe we just need to find out what that one thing is of how we can explain what IBC is for people. And I mean, we could say control because we both know we've been studying this forever now, right? It means more financial control. In order to adopt the mindset, get set up so that you can practice the infinite banking concept in your life.
Mm-hmm.
As cell phones are connection to us, financial control is to what it means to implement the IBC into your life.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it has just become, especially, with agriculture, it takes a lot to get started. It takes a lot to operate.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to expand buying land, you got to stick your neck out there.
Yes.
And it has become so norm to just carry debt for years and years and years. And then the next generation carry debt. It is just normal for that to be. And practicing infinite banking and, teaching it, we're trying to say, hey, wait, maybe that's been the norm, but there's a different way. Just stop and let's look at it. Let's look at it and open your mind to the possibilities of what could be if we could pay that bank off for good and keep more of that money. What is it going to look like for the current generation, the future generations, on and on and on?
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying as well. And I can't help and not to diminish anything that you're talking about, but there's a thought that's running around in my mind. And that is from 100 years ago, where the culture of money has shifted from scarcity, savings, cash to credit, consumption, and digital payments, not just here in Canada, but the rest of the world, right? And Nelson talked about the fact that the more that we borrow from the bank, we are a part of the problem too. Because when we borrow from the bank, which is based on a system of fractionalization, right? Borrowing money that isn't even there, which it also directly impacts the value of a dollar that we have.
Yeah.
We don't see it that way. We are trained through the media that inflation is caused by many other things that have nothing to do with what is actually called. Actually, it's a lie. Nelson always talked, there's a lot of lies in the marketplace. And what we're taught about what causes inflation is one of them. But what really does cause inflation is us borrowing from the bank. So the more that we can unplug from honestly making borrowing from the bank plan B and creating a pool of capital that you are borrowing from yourself, it has to start at some point.
Mm-hmm.
The sooner you start, the better, because it's not an overnight game. And to kind of tie this to at one point, 100 years ago, money was still really tied to physical notes, coins, gold standard. And now, it's totally become the norm, right? It was safe for your dad to borrow money. It's normal in most households to use credit to buy homes, cars, appliances, everything under the sun. And so now money has become less about money in your wallet and more about a digital system. Now, with a digital system, that has created a ton of convenience. But the more we allow our system to become dependent on digital currency, we are giving up control. Because remember, we talked about this in previous episodes too. Control and convenience are not they don't match. You can't have control and convenience at the same time.
Even when debit cards were introduced, swiping that debit card or now tapping the debit card, you are not as aware of what you are spending when you're doing it digitally, right? Convenience is a great thing, but what are we willing to let be convenient, and what is the price we're going to pay for that convenience is a huge question for me.
Here comes my advocacy of this, because we can only do it one household at a time, one person at a time, one household at a time, one operation at a time. For certain things, I think it's important to continue to utilize cash when we can. Don't forget about the cash, because if we don't use it, people, we lose it. And if we lose the cash, we lose a lot more financial control of our lives. So that's the symbolic reason. I think there's been utterings of it here and there, but I think it's really important to make sure that we keep cash in our pockets and use it.
Yeah, I think that too. Or the one question that a lot of people have is what is the infinite banking concept? Tie this all in, what we've talked about, is the solution that we see to all of the problems that we've talked about is the infinite banking concept. But what is it? And I'm taking this straight off of the Nelson Nash Institute website. The infinite banking concept empowers you to become your own banker by leveraging whole life insurance policies to create financial freedom. Grow your money steadily while maintaining control, bypassing traditional banking systems that limit your potential. Who wants to have their potential limited? Come on. Not me. I don't know anybody who wants to have their potential limited. And then the last thing is access your money anytime, borrow against your policy's cash value for life's needs while keeping your wealth growing in the background. So if that doesn't intrigue your interest or make you want to see, tickle your fancy, make you want to see what this could be for you. Like, don't let the bank limit your potential.
Let's make the next 100 years, let's shift the culture of what's going on right now. And we can do that one. It starts with you. It starts with me.
Yep.
It starts with Lacy.
It does start with you because, yesterday I met with somebody and you know how he came here? It started with his friend and neighbor, and then it trickled down. And so it truly does start with us. And if we want to spread the word, spread the love, this is what we do. We look into it, we implement it, and we start telling people about it. And so if you don't have any more thoughts, Winnie, I want to close with some closing remarks here. I want to read a little something.
You know what? There's always a lot more remarks about all of this. And I think I feel inspired to continue going down this theme of bringing history to our coming podcasts a little bit more, because I really feel like it expands our thinking and I think will help expand your thinking too.
I think so too. So with that said, I want to leave you guys with something. We believe there's a better way to do this. We believe you shouldn't have to spend your life working for a bank that never takes the risk, but always takes the profit. We believe that just because something is common in agriculture doesn't make it right. We believe debt should be controlled, not something that controls you. We believe cash flow matters more than interest rates and ownership matters more than approval. We believe your operation should serve your family, not the other way around. We believe in thinking long-term, acting intentionally, and building something that lasts beyond you. We believe that money should move through your hands with purpose, not leak out in places you don't even question anymore. We believe in asking better questions, not how do I get approved, but why do I need approval in the first place?
Amen.
This is making me emotional.
Keep going.
We believe in building systems that give you control, clarity, and confidence, no matter what the markets, the weather, or the banks decide to do. And we believe this: if you don't see the problem with the way things are, if you're comfortable with the status quo, if you think the bank is your only option, then this probably isn't for you. But if you're ready to think differently, take back control, and build your operation on your terms, then you're exactly where you're supposed to be. This is about more than money. This is about freedom, and we're just getting started. And apparently, sharing IBC with farmers and ranchers is more to me than a job, because I'm crying right now.
Many of you will never have an opportunity to see it, but sharing IBC takes a lot of grit and gumption.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone in the financial world agrees with what we do and how we see things. That's okay. And I think that's like that. But we do. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes on in order for someone like Lacy and I to do this full time, to share this full time, to stand up to it and say, hey, this is what it is. So such an honor to do this with you, Lacy. I don't think anything needs more to be said. That was an amazing set of words. So we'll leave it with you. What else do you have left to say?
So you guys know what to do. Head over to our website, rancherway.com. That's where you're going to grab the book, the paperback book of Farming Without the Bank. It's going to come with the audio version. And guys, this is your first step, but it's not the end. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy 100 episodes.
So glad you leaned in with us on the Winnie podcast. We truly hope you're feeling more informed and empowered to take another step towards optimizing your financial life. Right now, make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep growing and learning with us. Until next time, we wish you prosperity in every area of your life.